Okay, we're going to call to order the July 12th, 2019 South Coast Air Quality Management District Board meeting. And I want everybody, if they will, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any opening comments by any of my colleagues? Mayor Mitchell?
I wanted to mention that I, along with Executive Officer Wayne Nastri and Matt Miyasato, attended the conference at Asilomar last week that's put on by UC Davis, the Institution of Transportation Studies. And we heard from a lot of people. There were quite a few OEMs there and a lot of discussion about electrification of transportation, including electrification of heavy-duty trucks. So very, very educational conference. Just wanted to mention that.
Supervisor Hahn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I hope all of you received I forwarded to you an op-ed piece that was in the New York Times about the idea of banning MHS. So I just want to make sure all of my fellow board members got that. Not that we listen to New York Times on anything, but I thought it was an interesting article, and I just wanted to share it with each of you. The other thing, Mr. Chair, is that I think we also all received a letter from the Torrance Refinery Action Alliance. And after reading it, I also wanted a little bit of a clarification about the effect of what the refinery committee voted for in terms of, did that supersede what the full board voted on in terms of staff bringing back two options for refineries. I guess the board voted to have staff bring back both a rule and an MOU, and then the refinery committee voted to just focus on the MOU. So I think we need some clarification. I don't know if that's, Wayne, you're just going to clarify that now, or do we get that back out as a communication, particularly with TRAA, who wrote this letter?
The board direction was clear to move forward on an MOU and rulemaking. As I understand, Chairman McCallan's direction was to focus on the MOU, but that doesn't relieve us of the full board's recommendation to us. So if they would like to add to that, we're going to continue to work on an MOU and also look at the elements of what a rulemaking would look like. Ultimately, that'll be up to the board to decide.
I think that's correct. I mean, the board's direction was to do X and Y. That direction would be the same. I think the direction from the refinery committee, the recommendation from the refinery committee was to, try to get the MOUs done. That said, any MOU still needs to come back before the board. And I believe the refinery committee meeting notes will be at the September meeting. So, at that time there could be further discussion about that. But I think, the recommendation is just like a recommendation from the other committees. Is this is the direction that we believe you should take. And that's the direction we're going to take. We still do have board direction prior to look at a rule, and so we're. To try to make sure we can address this issue as expeditiously as possible, we're still proceeding down both paths in a parallel fashion.
Okay, and are we, Mr. Chairman, do you think there's a necessity to communicate back with this organization on the clarification? Of course, I'm not sure I really understood what they said.
I listened to it, and I'm not clear on it either, you know. So maybe you ought to send them a letter and me a letter, you know? Can we take another stab at that?
Let me try first. So the committee provided guidance on the MOU, specifically with regards to how we address some of the elements that we were actually seeking guidance on. So for instance, we were looking at acute exposure guideline limits in terms of whether or not we wanted to address what value we wanted to look at. And that in turn drove a lot of the other factors. We wanted to look at guidance from the committee with regards to, do we consider exposure at the fence line? Do we consider exposure at a residence, sensitive receptor? And so the committee provided guidance on those elements
So
of the
then, as
MOU.
I understand it, the full board said bring back two options, the rule and the MOU. And what the refinery committee did was tell you how to bring the MOU back.
Yes.
And who tells you what should be in the rule?
Well, we work with all the stakeholders. So we work
Okay.
with the refineries, we work with the public.
And is that moving forward as well?
Yes.
Okay.
I got it. I did, before I go to Mr. Cacciati, I did receive a communication from Mayor Pro Tem Larry McCallum, who is currently in Senegal, saying that the refinery committee at its June meeting directed staff to bring forward the governing board a memorandum of understanding with each of the Torrance and Wilmington refineries for consideration by the board at the November meeting. I realized after the meeting that the decision to have them considered at the November meeting was a decision to be made by me or the admin committee. I really don't see any problem in shooting for November because the rule committee, the rules agenda, had it set for November, didn't it?
Yes, sir, it is set for November. As you know, those are our objectives that we strive to hit. Obviously, there's a lot of information, a lot of stakeholder input, a lot of discussion. As we get closer to that date, staff may or may not make a recommendation to change that date, but at this point, we are working very diligently to meet the November deadline.
I would urge you to, if there is going to be any slippage, I'd urge you to work with the members of the refinery committee on the new date if there is to be one.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay. Mr. Caccioti?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'm in the process now of visiting all my 35 cities in eastern LA County. And what I've done is I leave work from the Attorney General's office every night at 5 or 6 o'clock, et cetera. I'm going to show you some pictures of the different city council meetings I've attended in the last 3 or 4 weeks. And each one I leave, this is my ticket actually last week to Pomona, one way from the Metrolink station, is the top left, LA Union Station, to the right, downtown Pomona. There's 2 lines that go to Pomona, north and the south. And this got me there in about 45 minutes. So this is typically what I do every night. I ride my bike over to Union Station, takes about 8-9 minutes, get in line for this ticket, or there's a machine there, and a gentleman said, 6B, you've got 4 minutes to get to the train. So the guy running through the turnstile is me. Next, Paul. And this was a meeting at El Monte City Hall 3 weeks ago, and in the center is Mayor Andre Quintero, who during the day is the LA City Attorney. Next. And this is a meeting of City of Claremont, and that's Mayor Calco in the middle. And Claremont and the City of El Monte, both Metrolink stops. El Monte got off with my bike, rode 1 mile. Claremont got off with my bike and walked it about 2 blocks to the meeting. Next. This was a meeting in the city of Temple City, and that's Cynthia Sternquist on the right, who's head of the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments. They're awarding some to the young ladies. They have a great program there for young women. And I took the 78 bus from downtown Los Angeles, took 45 minutes, walked across the street to the meeting. Next. This is Santa Clarita. He said, how do you get to Santa Clarita? Well, they've got a Metro link to Santa Clarita. Took that out to the station. It was a 2-mile ride into town, and we were close on time, so I rode along the Santa Clarita River for about 10 minutes, and then Bill Glazier pulled his car over, and we got the meeting a few minutes before it started. Next. And this is last night at the city of San Marino, and I had options to take the bus, but the bus was late, so when you're downtown, you have options. I drove the bike to Little Tokyo, got on the Gold Line, got off in South Pass Station. I had 20 minutes, and I hightailed it 4.5 miles to the meeting, got there just in time, and they're making a presentation. It's council member Talt on the left. I coached his niece about 10 years ago in soccer. So it should, Moyne, I want to thank your staff. They're always there ready. I'm on the phone with them saying I'm running 10 minutes. I'll be there in 5 minutes. I'll let them know where I am. They go, Councilmember Bacacci, you're ready to go. If you're late, let us know. So I've never been late once. There's always options, and your staff is always great, always organized. I get there, everything's run smoothly. So, Chairman, just great staff here, just a pleasure. And it's a pleasure to be out there. I feel like the Apostle Paul out there spreading the gospel. But this is the good news of reducing air pollution and clean air, going to all these cities and just, a lot of them receive it with open arms. Others are just, if you looked at one of those meetings, a couple of council members were like this. But most are like excited, tell us more. They want to come up here. They want to learn about us. And I think that's one of the reasons in our staff report later today talks about the electric residential lawnmower program. I do demonstrations. I bring in electric lawn equipment. We blow the council members' hair. We do everything, and they get excited. So thank you very much.
No, I want to thank you. I've grown to look forward to these photos every month. It's really very, very enlightening, and to see what you can actually do if you really want to do it. I commend you. Just wonderful, Michael, wonderful. Supervisor Rutherford.
Well, in San Bernardino County, we're going to try to add another train that you can come take with your bike on. The San Bernardino County Transportation Authority approved this week some new technology for our new 9-mile route that will be called the Arrow. And it will link downtown San Bernardino with Redlands, University of Redlands, along a loop system. And we voted to go with hydrogen fuel cell battery as the preferred option. It will be the first train of this sort in the country, if we're able to get it together, obviously reducing greenhouse gases as well as being zero emission. And the state grant that funded it so far has indicated that they don't just want it on that 9-mile loop, they want it to be able to connect our commuter line out to Union Station. And so while the project doesn't include that at this point, we're hoping that we're going to be able to get there. So it's pretty exciting. We'll be groundbreaking for that next Friday out in Redlands. And hopefully in the next couple of years, you'll be able to bring your bike and come right all the way out to Redlands.
The scheduling of these things is just amazing. I know about 10 years ago, I was talking to Ben's father, and we were having a retreat down in Palm Springs in his district. So, and my wife didn't want to come with me the day I drove. So she wanted to take the train, Amtrak, and she ultimately did that for a number of years at his recommendation. And the train let her off at about 12 o'clock on Friday when we were, so I would race from our meeting to the train station on that little, oh man, it's horrible. Yeah. And I would pick her up and we'd stay for the weekend. And then she gets appointed to Amtrak, and they take that train off. They just removed it from the schedule. And she's been fighting now for about 5 or 6 years to get that train back on the schedule for. She only goes once a year, so it's not for her. It's obviously for the people of Palm Springs, so that they can get down there and have get the people down from L.A. and get the people from Palm Springs back to L.A. So anyway, it's all coming together. It's just taking a long time. It's just tough stuff. Board Member Delgado?
Thank you, Chairman. So I just wanted to take a minute to introduce my staff. We finally are getting up to speed, and I just wanted them to stand. Teresa Acosta will be serving as my board consultant. She brings years of experience to the board. Sandra Hernandez will be serving as a board assistant, as will Christian Riesgo, who we found him from the list of interns that applied. So we're all very excited to advance the air quality mission goals of our organization, and I'd just like to introduce them to you today.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's move to the consent calendar. There is
Dr. Burke?
no further comments by any of my colleagues, right?
Dr. Burke?
Moving to the consent calendar. Yes, Wayne?
Before you move to consent calendar, if I could make a
Sure.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Mayor Cacchiotti for his kind comments on staff, and I think that everybody recognizes that staff here is amazing. And I think one of the advantages of working at the district is that you get a lot of recognition, and our staff certainly is worthy and deserving of the recognition that it gets. One of the challenges we see throughout the state is the desire for great leadership. And I'm somewhat saddened today to announce that Laki Tisopoulos will be leaving us. I don't understand why. I do question his judgment. But having said that, he will become the new executive officer for the Ventura County Air Pollution Control District. So it's a wonderful opportunity for him. It's a big loss for us, but this, unfortunately, will be his last governing board meeting. So I just wanted to acknowledge his tremendous contributions over the last almost 3 decades of work that's led not only us here in South Coast, but through improvements throughout our national and, in fact, throughout international air programs. So I just wanted to raise that to your attention and to acknowledge his contributions and to wish him well.
And for our acknowledgement of his efforts, I'm going to ask Board Member Cacchiotti to arrange a match race between Matt and Derek on their bikes from here to his district office. And if anybody's alive at the end, we'll crown them the winner. All joking aside, like, you know, I think you know how much I appreciate your efforts, and I'm sure it's reflected by the balance of the board. Your efforts have been phenomenal. When you took over the backlog in permits, you know, everybody said that it was impossible for you to get it down to a manageable number, and you absolutely did that and nothing flat. So, I mean, our loss is somebody else's gain, but that's what happens in life. You deserve that, and I'm jealous of them, but I'm also happy for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Board, for the opportunity. It has been a privilege and an honor to serve this board, this agency. We have accomplished a lot over the decades that we are all very proud of. So I want to thank you all for the opportunity. I want to thank my colleagues, my staff, and I've worked with many of them over the years for helping me make this happen. Thank you for the memories. This agency will have a special spot in my heart, and I'll be carrying this for the rest of it. So thank you again. Thank you all.
I just also want to join in and express my appreciation to Laki for your years of service. You really have been a joy to work with, and you leave here with a great accomplishment in reducing the backlog in our permits. So we very much appreciate your service, and we congratulate you on this new position, which will be exciting for you, but we do that with sort of bittersweet feelings of remorse over losing you here. So I wish you the best.
Councilmember Caccioti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, joining those comments and accolades. And Lockie, I'm just curious, you're one of my constituents in the city of Claremont, I thought. So here's my question.
Yes, sir.
You're Claremont, which is the eastern LA County, almost San Bernardino, and you just took a job in Ventura County. Can you tell us what you're going to do with this decision?
Specifically, which train you're gonna ride, is what he's asking.
It's going to be a tough choice. Initially, one leg will be in Claremont, another leg in Ventura, so I'll straddle both.
There are MetroLink trains that run back and forth. They're safe. You know, I've got a schedule I'm going to give you right now, Lockie.
I'll be seeking your advice, Mr. Caccioti.
And you thought he was kidding. And you thought he was kidding. Well, Mr. Caccioti is delivering the schedule.
Wayne have one more comment.
Wayne, you have another comment?
Dr. Burke, I also,
Lucky, that's $2.
Dr. Burke, I also just wanted to take a moment and maybe acknowledge the interns. I know you did a really interesting job this morning, but I think others may like to hear that.
I'd like the interns to please stand and be recognized. Every year, I think we've topped ourselves in the quality of interns that we get here at AQMD. And every year, I never cease to be amazed at the intelligence and the personality and drive that you guys have. So we here at AQMD owe you a debt of gratitude to come and spending some time with us this summer. Thank you very much. Now, am I moving on to the consent calendar, or do we have anything else? We're good. Okay. Mr. Eder has signed up for every item on the consent calendar, which is only 11 items. So I can't divide 11 into 3. My math's not that good. So you have to take, maybe if you take it to 180 minutes divided by 11, that's probably.
So, Mr. Chair, my recommendation would be, I respect your math skills, but that we give him
Speaking about your evaluation.
As I said, I respect your math skills, sir. Give him the 3 minutes for the consent calendar and the board calendar all at once, just to make it easier for him to divide up his 3 minutes amongst those 26 items.
Consent and board calendar? Yeah. Okay, Mr. Eder?
I think they should both, this under protest should be given separate times, consent and board, et cetera. Anyway, so it's under protest. Everything that's being done by the district in reference to energy should include equitable, just elements for the solar transition. So like these $20–30 million for trucks, first of all, it should not have natural gas and fossil fuels in it. They should all be ZEBs, solar renewables. They've used 35–40% for low-income earmarks. That should be done in these as well, on these vehicles, and in the future when they produce them, that 50–60% of that should go to low and middle income. The deal should be made with manufacturers, and with the state as well, tying into retirement systems for low and middle incomes like De Leon's a few years ago. That's in several states. This is concepts that we brought 40 years ago with the low-income solar equity program to the PUC, which we presented to you folks and you ignored it. On the 17th, information was published in the Federal Register about the 16 plan, reviewed by EPA. Next week, its comments are due. It purged solar. In the 12 plan in September of 14, at least they spelled our names right. They trashed it, didn't know what they were talking about, but this plan is total of the state, local, and federal government ignoring the law and their duties, and their legislative intent. It's pretty outrageous anyway. I don't know. We had a quake this morning. I didn't feel it, but we brought this up going back to the 91 plan when we contested it. Understand that there's a 1 to 3% chance in the next month of even a bigger quake. We've put stuff in the record about district solar heating, cooling, generating systems, and that you could store water. The snow's going down, and water in the state coming to the south. We've got to deal with this. San Francisco burnt to the ground after a quake. Tokyo, other places. There was an article about a year ago in the LA Times. Gas lines exploding and whatnot. We've got a plan for this, and this AB 1154, co-authored by Burke, has to not be signed by the government. It's garbage. We've spent tens of trillions of dollars to the IOUs, and we've paid for that we're going to get their T&D system for under $3 billion. We haven't now. These problems aren't going away. It should be under crisis for the state instead of just wildfires. Anyway.
The thing is that my assistant's father helped design the system for shutting down the gas pipes in Tokyo in case of an earthquake or a natural disaster. And I, quite frankly, have never really had a substantive conversation with her about that, you know. But when she gets back from Tokyo, I'm definitely going to do that, Harvey.
Okay, I did leave a message trying to get a message to you vis-a-vis her.
The other thing, Harvey.
Yes.
I know my other sister said that you were trying to get a hold of me about my daughter, my other daughter.
Well, legislation.
I'm useless. I'm just her father. Okay.
Well.
So I'll be glad to put you in touch with her directly.
Well, I'm sure you're not without influence.
So I just didn't want you to waste your time with me, you know.
I contacted their office about 6 months, a year ago, but I didn't follow through. But I was surprised by this, and I'm really concerned.
Okay. I can put you, the one thing I can do is hook you up with her staff.
All righty.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now back to,
Mr. Chair?
yes.
I heard that there was somebody who had trouble signing up for public comment before. Just wanted to reiterate that the iPads are working, and if anybody who wanted to sign up for public comment had trouble before, they can go do that now.
Is there anybody in the audience who had trouble or couldn't sign up, other than you, Harvey?
I had trouble, but I was assisted by Ron, but also board member Benoit had trouble, as did Mark Abramowitz and other folks.
Yeah, he's my favorite tech. Anybody else that would like to speak on the public hearing? Nobody will. I'll accept a motion on the consent calendar?
Mayor Mitchell has a comment first.
I'm sorry, Mayor Mitchell, didn't mean to leave you behind there.
I just need to announce that on agenda items numbers 3 and 6, I do not have a financial interest, but I'm required to identify for the record that I'm a board member of the California Air Resources Board, which is involved in those 2 items. Thank you.
Councilmember Caccioti?
I'd like to pull item 5 just for a brief comment.
I'm sorry?
Pull item 5 just for a brief comment.
Oh, yeah, no problem. No problem. Okay, if we could have a motion then on the consent calendar.
Move approval?
Minus item 5.
I'll second.
Any opposition to that? Hearing none, the consent calendar is carried with the exception of item 5, which Mr. Caccioti will now speak to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is to approve funds to continue the year-round electric lawnmower program, our rebate program, which I support 100%. It's great. I think this is just an example of an agency pushing the envelope and really pushing the industry. When we had this program, I think it's over 10 years ago, it started. Matt, been working with Matt on it. I got one of the first original Newton plastic lawnmowers, which barely cuts your yard when I did have a yard. And there was only like the Newton, I think that was from a Northeastern company. They'd have to call if something went wrong. And it actually lasted like 9 years. And then there was Green Station and then a couple other companies. I actually went to China to check their facility where they made the electric lawnmowers. But now, this report, I'm so impressed. It said there's 20 out there now, there's 30 manufacturers. And just there's a parallel evolution here. You've got as Vice Chair Benoit knows, the electric car industry and hydrogen fuel cells, CNG, what an evolution over the last decade.
Yes.
In vehicles, when I had the Leaf, could go 90 miles if I was lucky. How far does your?
310.
310 miles on his Tesla. Lawnmowers the same way. I mean, they were like barely could cut grass now. They're robust.
Yep.
They're fabulous, but they're still quiet like a vacuum cleaner. So I support this, but it's because we pushed the industry, which again, there was one name out there from small company back east. And a few companies got involved. Now there's 30 companies.
That's amazing.
At Home Depot, Ace Hardware, you see them out there.
Yep.
And this is exciting. We need more money because 1,000 people turned them in.
Well, and I think it's great too, just walking into a Home Depot or Lowe's or Ace Hardware, any of them, the first lawnmower you see now, most of those places, is the electric lawnmower.
Right.
And they're many of them moving off the shelves. It's really a transition that I agree that this agency pushed, and I'm happy to see where it's gone. And it's also great to see that in the leaf blowers. I have a couple of jurisdictions in my area that have banned gas-powered leaf blowers, and they're only allowing electric now.
Great.
And same thing, the electric leaf blowers have come a long ways, and it's just, the technology is definitely there. It's just a matter of getting people to get out there and try it, and I think it's still a great program, and look to see it move forward in the future.
So I'll move this item, Mr. Chair.
Is there any opposition to item 5? Hearing none, it is approved. But in keeping with item 5, we have been talking about the commercial leaf blower program. Where are we with that?
So we are meeting with Board Member Delgado on Tuesday. We discussed putting together a focus group. She's going to organize the participants on that. So I anticipate this coming together quickly. We want to figure out what they're looking for. We want to also demonstrate to them at this focus group the equipment, because as she said, or I think it was you, Dr. Burke, may have said that they heard negative things about it, but I think depending on the equipment, the manufacturer, we have to obviously show them that there's more than just one piece of equipment, that there's options out there.
Excuse me. How many manufacturers are there now
6.
of commercial?
So when I do my presentations at the cities, one of the slides talks about the 6 various manufacturers of the backpack leaf blowers, et cetera. There may be others out there, but these are the main ones. Like Still is a top manufacturer.
Have you done any evaluation of those?
We have. So we became the first city in the United States to have our first park, Garfield Park, which was 9 to 10 acres, become all electric. We put it in the contract with the contractor. He had 2 years to convert. We did. It was tough. But then 2 years later, we said the entire city, all our soccer field, baseball fields, library. So we have Dan Mabe from American Greens and Alliance, who certifies every city. He comes to meetings with me when he can, and we do our demonstration. He'll go out to the city. We've been in South Amani recently. Santa Clarita just agreed to purchase based on us going out there with people. And I bet and Wayne and Derek are great. We've been meeting to try to really push this. And Wayne and Derek are supportive to actually get a person, because as Board Member Delgado knows, that industry, which I worked in as a kid in college, they're stuck in the old ways. But if you get somebody out there that can talk their language, can get on the ground with them and demonstrate and show them it's good equipment, not like it was 5 or 6 years ago. We needed 4 batteries and a 60-inch riding lawnmower. Now you got 1 electric battery, and it does it. We can do it.
Chairman Burke, if I might, just give a little context. So this idea was born from the chairman, and essentially the genesis was that some local cities are making this equipment. They're outlawing diesel equipment and going to electric, but the reality is that many commercial gardeners are small business owners that do this on their own. They may not have health insurance. My take on this program is more of a personal one, where it's about the individual who doesn't have the ability to trade out their equipment. And those are the vast majority of people who we're trying to help. And so it's not so much the businesses that can afford to switch this out, who have public contracts maybe. It's about the individual. I was looking for research, and there is absolutely not one cancer study about the impacts that this equipment has on the individual, because a lot of them, like I was having conversations with my gardener, they don't have health insurance, they don't get vacations. And so I'm looking at it more of a context of helping people, not so much forcing an issue. So what we're doing is we're trying to get 40 gardeners from San Fernando Valley, Coachella Valley, from the east side, in Spanish and English. We're gonna take all these people and bring them with manufacturers and tell them why the equipment doesn't work for a commercial level operation. And then manufacturers are gonna be asked to change the equipment. And then we will create a program around this, so we incentivize the changes. So I think it's a little bit more of a making sure that we provide the business incentives so that we can help people who are having to use this equipment on a day-to-day basis. So that's the genesis. So I have to give credit to the idea to the chairman, but I'm willing to we're gonna be doing this on a Sunday. We'll invite you all to come so that people can actually hopefully get helped from a health perspective who are using this.
Yeah, in keeping with that, I was talking to my gardener who said that in the past year he had been to the hospital 4 times, and he thought that the cause of all 4 times was particulate matter. He didn't call it particulate matter, he called it dust, but that's what he was talking about. Here's what I think we need to be careful of, and here's what we need to be doing. When you talk about economic incentive, this is such a tough sell, but such a necessary thing. We need to do as we did in the dry cleaning industry and the number of other industries that we've pushed the technology, new technology. We need to write down the cost of these things for the commercial guys, at least to get them started. You see, because if you just go tell them this is going to be quieter and it's going to improve your health, that's not going to do it. But what I'm also concerned about is if you go to them with focus groups. I'm not sure I'm in for the focus group thing, because focus group, you're just going to get what Katya was talking about. They've been doing this for 50 years. I'm not going to change it now. I'm used to this. I think the real avenue of advancement is you got to lead them by economics. If you can write down a unit, my gardener was talking, and let me tell you, he knew the numbers. He knew the numbers on electric. He knew the numbers on gasoline. So it's not like they're not thinking about it.
Yeah.
And he knew the price points. So if we could write those price points down $300, $400, $500 a unit, I think this is an easy sell.
That's the goal. That's what I meant when I said program, but since we don't have that information yet, I don't want to guesstimate as to what that's going to be, but we're going to invite everybody, once there's something to talk about, to participate.
Mr.
So,
Chair?
you know, I don't want to poo-poo on your focus groups, but, you know, I'd rather you spend your energies on finding some money so we could write down the cost of these things. And I know it's not you, Mr. Alatorre, alone. It's the organization as a whole. But I think that really gets this thing started. Okay.
I want to mention that the emissions from this kind of equipment are really significant. California Air Resources Board has looked at this, and the emissions from, I was just checking on this, emissions from a new gas-powered lawnmower produces VOCs and nitrogen oxides that equal, in 1 hour, they produce those pollutants that equal 1 hour of 11 cars driving. So, I mean, you're doing a lot of good when you actually attack this equipment and get cleaner equipment.
And Mr. Chair, I want to say one more thing. If I was misunderstood, I apologize, but I support Vanessa and yourself, but let me tell you what we've been doing for several years. And the money's out there. We have a great incentive program. One of my slides actually shows a typical backpack blower, which manufacturers suggest a retail price $1,200, about double, 3 times the price of a regular backpack blower. So I've been at our exchange programs where I've been at Glendale College, and they bring in these blowers that are 20 years old and tapes all over them, and they're oil soot, and they buy a new gas. But the new ones, so take the $1,200 you're talking about. Let's talk economics. And we talked to the individual gardeners, and I'm with you 100%. And we've done at South Pass, we've measured the VOCs and everything that we've reduced at our parks and everything in the city, in each individual park. And we've educate the workers. This part of our certification program, we sit down with a PowerPoint and educate. Here's what it does for your health. So we've already, don't reinvent the wheel, it's done. But take that $1,200. With our incentive program, and Matt will tell you this, just our bulk purchasing in bulk, it's reduced $400 to about $800. Then we knock it down a few hundred more dollars with our incentive program. So you're gonna basically you're paying like 30% of the price of a $1,200 backpack blower. And then not only that, but all the different parts of the equipment. 60-inch riding lawnmower will knock it down. We've got an airshed grant Wayne's aware of. And this is why we've been talking to Wayne, and I know Vanessa has too. We've got like $1.4 million, and we've only used, a couple, $20,000, $40,000.
How much?
How much have we used, Wayne? I forget what it was, 40,000 or something, Matt, or?
Yeah, the program, it's a large program grant, as you mentioned, from the EPA, and we just kicked it off, so we're just getting started. But you're right, we got a discounted price from the manufacturers, and so then the consumer pays 50% of that. So you're right, it's about a 60-70% reduction.
And the big thing you tell these people, and if you've done the work, it's not just gasoline, it's oil. You're putting gasoline, 2-stroke oil in, and that's $3 or $4 a shot. And when, as Vanessa's trying to, if you can tell that gardener, it's like buying an electric car. You pay a little more up front, and you guys know, but over the long term of the car, you're saving $10,000 to $20,000. And he may pay a few $100s more up front, but when there's no more gas and oil every time, and our workers at our parks are now thanking us, especially the younger generation, Bill. The old timers are still, they're learning, but they don't come home smelling like gas and oil anymore. So it's an exciting program, and actually 2 days ago, we forced them to get 2 riding lawnmowers. One of them broke, and they had to use a gas. We put in a provision for a year in our parks. You have 1 mistake a year. We understand machines break down. You can use gas once. And that's what happened this week, actually. I went out there, I saw him, I said, Mike, we saw you coming. The electric stuff broke down. It's in the shop getting fixed. Don't yell at us. But we've got a system set up. I'll put Mr. Mabe in touch with you so we don't reinvent the wheel. But I think this is an opportunity, as you said, with the electric, the commercial, to move forward with that too.
And thank you for that work, by the way. We're essentially taking that work to a more, to the neighborhoods where, trying to get the outreach more into the Spanish-speaking community especially, and a little bit more grassroots. So That's the intention, so it can work in combination.
Okay, my last comment on this is the $200 difference. I'd rather pay the extra $200, get the program started, get the inertia moving off the snide and get them interested in it, and then see if it doesn't keep going from that. Okay. I assume, Paul, that these people have spoken that are on the.
I have.
You- Okay. It's not clearing, okay. Then we will take items 12 through 26.
I'll move 12 through 26 unless there's anyone that has anything they want to say.
Second.
Any opposition? Hearing none, items 12 through 26 are approved. Item 27.
Dr. Burke, this is Philip Fine. For this item, and actually the other two public hearing items are largely administrative rule amendments, so staff is prepared to waive the presentation on 27 and potentially 28 and 29 as well.
So we have no presentation. May I get a motion?
Mr. Chair, I think we might have public comment on these items.
Harvey? I'd like to see the presentation. 27.
Staff has waived it.
Huh?
Staff has waived the presentation, Harvey, so it's up to you. You can give us a presentation.
3 minutes.
Just kidding.
Hello, I'm Harvey Etter. I'm speaking for myself and for the Public Solar Power Coalition. In reference to this, I'm concerned about exemptions from CEQA. Under this rule, I was contacted many years ago by staff that there was some solar activity going on and that there were discounts to permits for putting in solar. They wanted to know like how those numbers worked out. Anyway, I looked at it a little bit, but I didn't follow through on it. But so there's some history there. And obviously, in the permit process for the district and evaluating each time a permit's made, its solar potential on-site, off-site, close neighborhoods, or far off anyway. As part of implementing the just, equitable, immediate total solar conversion. I want to share one thing about nitrous oxide. On the 12th of August in 16, we put in comments, the first comments to the 16 draft. Showing basically that based on Chapter 10, page 2 of the draft plan done by Aaron Katzenstein, that there'd been over a 30% increase in methane in the last 12 years. So we did these calculations, and based on using 20-year instead of 100-year, we're close to, we had 780 parts per million CO2 equivalent versus 450 used by district in the state. And now nitrous oxide, there was a recent report in the Arctic News and out of the Harvard Gazette that there was, I'm trying to follow through on this, a 12 times increase in nitrous oxide. That has a GWP of 300. And this is part of melting in the Arctic. And that's on right now. Okay, so we're also, the radiative forcing for methane was 0.48, and it's now evaluated at 0.61, about a 25% increase. So these numbers, we're double the climate numbers now. And that's the real world. We've got to deal with it. And, I still got a little more time. So everything in the district and that the state does has to be evaluated. The state's image around the world has taken a leader in this one, that we're in denial and not even calculating and using the real numbers, the best science, the best evidence, and what's happening now with the plans and stuff's going on is outrageous. It's simply outrageous.
Harvey, was that 27 and 28?
All right. Ditto on 28, reclaim. We put stuff on the record of what the Israelis did out here in the desert 20, 30, 40 years ago. DOE built the power tower, a 10 megawatt. It cost about $120 million. The Israelis came with line focus concentrators that they did.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to remind Mr. Etter that this item relates to reclaim.
That's what I'm talking about. This was submitted in the record, totally ignored as far as BART, best available retrofit
specifically with
control
respect to
technology.
whether facilities will remain in reclaim or not. So I'd just recommend that he, or ask that he leave his comments focused on that.
I'll make my comments where I want to make them. And I find this outrageous, being tempered back here on advice. We put this stuff in the record, and the district and the state ignored it. The state has never, the Supreme Court in 12, there's a unanimous decision that we brought up on incorporating the record discussion at the February 8th Administrative Committee to the board. It's technology forcing. It was in there. It was put there for BART. It's totally ignored. Okay, they built a 14 megawatt line focus concentrator for about $50 million, about $3-4 a watt instead of 12. Then they built at Edwards Air Force Base around 354 megawatts in 30s and 80s. It showed it was cost effective then. We brought it up back then in the 80s and in the 90s to the district and continue. We tried to bring it up here and what's available, and it was totally ignored for BART. We're the ones that first came here to the district and said that we've got to bring back command and control. It was about 10 years ago, and as part of a solar conversion. And anyway, these, this is backsliding. Included is the Solar New Deal. It's in the record. I gave it at the last meeting here, in many meetings last night and whatnot at 617s and those. It's the 1617 plan, and it's over 50 exhibits in the Solar New Deal. Totally ignored, including about half a dozen on drug-resistant antibiotics through landfills, sewers, and feedlots. 70% of human antibiotics used in feedlots. You didn't have to report the deaths in California until last year. They're trying to sell renewable natural gas, the gas company and PG&E. It's garbage. There's a body count, 9 million per premature death. We're already counting 7,500 for the state and 44, they say, for the district. That's $70 billion a year, about a third of the budget, and that's way low by orders of magnitude. And in Aliso Canyon, they've never studied natural gas as NOx. It's against policy in the Health and Safety Code 53,002B, etc. Thank you.
Is staff going to waive the presentation on 28 also? Then I'll take a motion on both 27 and 28.
I'll move approval of 27 and 28.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the 27 and 28 are approved unanimously. Item 29.
So similarly, Dr. Burke, item 29 is administrative, just incorporating some recent changes in EPA regulations into our Regulation 9 and 10. It's a routine item. Staff recommends waiving the presentation.
We've have the presentation waived. May I get a motion on 29?
Second?
A motion and a
Mr.
second
Chair,
on
I-
20. Hello?
We should, I think there might be public comment again on this item, although it's a really narrow issue. It's more of an administrative issue, so I'd recommend that we limit public comment to specifically addressing the item at issue.
Do we have, yeah, we have public comment on 29. Is Harvey signed up for 29? Yes, Harvey is signed up for 29. Mr. Etter?
Hello, I'm Harvey Etter. I'm speaking for myself and for the Public Solar Power Coalition. Exemptions from CEQA concern me. Hazardous emissions, toxics. We got big problems. Again, we've never looked at natural gas. The district's pushing these natural gas trucks. And you've seen the issues that they're ignoring. And they've never looked at natural gas as a toxic. There's benzene and formaldehyde in NOx and SOx and PM and ultrafines, and stuff's getting worse because of climate change. I'm incorporating by reference the LA Times article on the 2nd of this month saying that the climate stuff is exacerbating regular emissions, criteria, toxics, whatnot. And we're not going to meet the standards. And solar's the only way we're going to meet it. That has to be taken, the bigger picture, and integrated with the district, the state, and the federal government, et cetera. It's got to be included in CEQA. The state's really fallen down on this, as has the district. And this, the plan didn't have to be evaluated after 18 months until October. I know even the Sierra Club came in December saying that there was no evaluation, there's no plan by the district, the state, and now by the Environmental Protection Agency, and it's considering litigation, as we've discussed as well. I don't know. We've got a new governor. You know, what Brown started like 40 years ago, and it just kind of pooped out when Reagan came in and ripped solar out of the White House that Carter put in. And now we've got denial and equating carbon emissions. This guy, I guess, Harper, who's put in working with Bolton for climate change, with poor Jews in Europe during the Depression and the Holocaust. Anyway.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Okay, that concludes the testimony on the 29.
Anyway, I seconded it, so.
Move in a second. Is there any opposition to 29? Hearing none, 29 is approved. Do we have any other public comment that is not recorded here on the computer? Hearing none. What is this about, board member travel?
We still have public,
Mr. Chair,
general
Mr.
public
Etter
comment,
has
though.
signed up under public comment
I thought that's what I just
and
did.
closed session.
Well, Harvey still signed up for general public comment.
It's always on there. It's a standing item.
His last comments were on 29.
Oh, okay.
Harvey, come on down.
Then Harvey, one more time.
Hello, I'm Harvey Etter. I'm speaking for myself and for the Public Solar Power Coalition, and for the 80-90% of the people and voters that want to see equitable, just solar conversion ASAP. Last night I was at a meeting of 617 in Wilmington. It was our 8th meeting. I don't see here, but Alicia Rivera was there. And there are folks from Marathon, from the unions and stuff. They packed the place. I sat in the front. I didn't realize the place was packed. Anyway, they made presentations and whatnot. And at the end, a couple of union guys made public comments after I made a public comment. But she said, and I want to incorporate by reference that meeting and especially her comments. And she said, hey, you know, we see that you give these people jobs, you have internships, this is great stuff, it helps the community, but we got to be doing this in the alternatives, in the renewables, and we have to make these kind of things available. And now, to go for, basically she's saying like the pro-life versus the other way. And I thought it was spot on, and you know, I can't say exactly how she put it, but I think it's important. And she's been in that community and doing this stuff for a long time. And anyway, so also I've been talking to, you know, the stuff about manufacturers and trucks and whatnot, and trying to work from the Carl Moyer and the VW and these other programs and tie them into solar electric vehicles, and to do that, you know, equitably through co-ops and partnerships and whatnot in the communities and involving low and middle income people, which, you know, 2/3 of the population has not seen increases in living standards in the last 30, 40 years. You know, stagnant income, wealth are going down. Anyway, equity is a big problem, and in the Western democracies and whatnot, it's being threatened. Again, we've entered into evidence in the record the requests that we made and the 1617 records, including the Solar New Deal and all the exhibits, and which was basically ignored. And I know on February 8th you asked me to get back to you, and that's what I'm trying to do, Dr. Burke, and I'm trying to reorganize that. There's 66 different submittals in there, about 5,000 pages plus, and 10-20% of it is our submissions.
Thank you very much for your testimony. That concludes our public comment. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to give public comment? Seeing none? Now back to the board minutes for travel, where I was at 5 minutes ago. 3 minutes ago. Right. You're absolutely right. That's right. I hate you sometimes, you know. Sorry. But he is right. Why is board member travel on there? Well, the executive director doesn't.
It's a standing item, Mr. Chairman. It's always appears on the agenda, just to let the public know that those reports are on file in the clerk of the board's office.
Okay. So it's just a notification and nothing that we need
To address.
do anything
No,
about?
the board does
Okay.
not need to address
Thank
it.
you very much. If that is true, do we have any closed session today?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do.
We do.
There's a speaker on closed session.
Mr. Etter has requested to speak under closed session today as well, just FYI.
Oh, okay. Would you send us to closed session?
So, Mr. Etter would like to address the items on closed session before, sir. So I'd recommend that we take his public comment on that, as long as he keeps it relevant to the cases that are listed on the agenda. There is a provision in the agenda, however, sir, that says that each person gets 3 items or less on each item on the agenda. So if the chair wanted to give less for this one, you could do so. Or you could give him the full 3 minutes if you wanted.
Want to give Harvey his 3 minutes, or it's up to you?
In closed session?
No.
Why-
Before
why
we
don't
go to
just
closed
give him
session,
3
sir, I
minutes now
apologize.
And listen to what he's got to say.
So Harvey, you want to come down and speak to closed session? Please keep it relevant to closed session.
Good morning. I'm Harvey Etter. I'm speaking for myself and for the Public Solar Power Coalition, ditto what I said before. I think there should be summaries made of these lawsuits and what the issues are that are available to the public. That's like a gut feeling that I have. And I don't know if anybody else has asked to speak on closed sessions before. I think I did last time, but I think it's important. Litigation is one of the ways maybe that we do things and make decisions. And I think it should be made as open to the public as possible, and that we should understand, you know, the bigger picture as much as possible and how it fits into what we're trying to accomplish. All right, thank you.
It's my understanding, that closed session is, we go into closed session as required by legislative requirements, right?
Yes, sir.
So, you know, I agree, Harvey, everything should be transparent, but there's some things that we have no control over. If in fact the legislature says we have to go into closed session, then that's it. We can't change that.
Well, I'm curious what exactly the law says and what practice says, and, you know, what precedents there are.
I'll let you
And-
debate
and-
this out with the lawyer.
Pardon?
I'm
But
not the guy.
you know, if you do agree, if there's some way of working that out, then, you know.
But what you said that I did like is, I have no clue. I don't know if any board member has any clue the number of lawsuits that this agency is currently. Does anybody have a clue? Okay, then the next question is, Babe, do you have a clue on the total number of lawsuits that we are involved in?
Mr. Chair, we provide a confidential attorney-client memo monthly that outlines those lawsuits. So I can re-forward that to you.
Okay, great. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
But I think that the board should know, like permits, you should know what kind of volume you're dealing with here on lawsuits.
I agree. Mr. Chair, can I make one comment?
Sure.
Just if maybe as I'm looking at this, it indicates on the agenda, conference with legal counsel, and it has the 2 items. I remember when I first got into council, that was an issue I had with our staff putting proper identification of what the issue was. So maybe we can make a little more, like for example, the first one, letter from Stephen Olson of Melvin and Myers, behalf of ExxonMobil. I know you're supposed to identify for the public so they have an idea of what we're going to be talking about. We can't talk about strategy, legal strategy, anything like that, Harvey. But I think maybe we can just identify a little more. For example, in our city, when they were discussing, and this is what I got on the city staff, but we're discussing this before I got into council. They were discussing the sale of a property. And you're supposed to, the government code says you're supposed to specifically identify the location. The council had put on there, the former council had put discussing sale of a property near some bridge. I say, you can't, that's not what you can't do that. You got to give me the street address so the public, if they want to, can do so. Can we make it maybe a little more thorough or something? Is it possible to be?
So we can always take board direction on those issues. I did want to point out, though, that the Brown Act has specific basic safe harbor provisions and examples in terms of how to effectively communicate the issues, and we follow that with all these issues. With property, that's a little bit different because you do need to give a little bit more information so that somebody can know which specific piece of property is at issue and what the issues are with the property. And so for each of the items that you see listed, we do list what they're about. We do say what they're about. I wouldn't want to start a practice that might negatively impact our position in litigation.
Of course, just as you're
I do want
balancing
to,
this,
I'll give that some thought.
as you balance, try to err on the side of more public, accountability and notice and things like that, if you can.
No board member. Use the volume. I think that concludes the business
Okay.
before us today. So we will adjourn today's.
To
Closed
just
session.
brief
Board
closed
meeting.
session, sir. It is necessary for the board to recess to closed session pursuant to Government Code Sections 54956.9 Sub A and 54956.9 Sub D Sub 1 to confer with its counsel regarding pending litigation which has been initiated formally and to which the SCAQMD is a party. The actions are in the matter of SCAQMD v. Aerocraft Heat Treating Co. Inc. and Anaplex Corp. SCAQMD Hearing Board Case Number 6066-1, Order for Abatement. SCAQMD v. Anaplex Los Angeles Superior Court Case Number BC 608322, Paramount Hex Chrome. In re People of the State of California, XREL SCAQMD v. Exide Technologies Inc., Los Angeles Superior Court Case Number BC 533528. In re Exide Technologies Inc., U.S. Bankruptcy Court, District of Delaware, case number 13-11482, KJC bankruptcy case. It is a report of the reportable actions taken in closed session will be provided to the clerk of the board. The meeting is adjourned.